There's more on power987.co.za.
This morning, Neo Lebo, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to the listeners. After a long weekend, man.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to be here, man.
Lovely to have you on. Neo, how are you doing?
Great, thanks. I couldn't wait to be introduced with Lebo as the dynamic duo. The property ninjas.
Of course, you guys without fail remain the dynamic duo. The other day I was like, oh, they're known twins. And I was like, oh, wait. But I'm so glad that you guys are here joining us. You are dynamic. You're doing a lot of work, great work. And I'm excited to hear that you guys were in the mother city. Also just, getting to understand the opportunities that lie beyond Gauteng in terms of just positioning Nong Wealth as well, the footprint, and taking your business and your wisdom really outside of Gauteng to the world, really. Tell us about the Cape Town experience. What were you guys up to that side? And then we'll come back and talk about sectional title deeds.
Yeah.
No?
So the experience was really beautiful, man. I don't want to lie in terms of, because we went with our team, Sis Pet, she is the property lawyer, and then we were talking about estate planning. So the thing about estate planning is that a lot of people are thinking that, no, I'm going to start planning once I have 2 million in my account, or I'm going to start planning once I have 10 properties. Whereas as soon as you have 10 properties and you realize they're under your personal capacity, transferring them from personal capacity to a trust, it's going to be really costly. So now the question was more of, the statement was more of, we need to start doing estate planning right now before you even start.
Oh, really? So how does it work? Because one would say you plan for what, or looking at what you have or what you envision to have, looking at where you are. Do I just more or less start planning, looking at this economy? I'm one person that just, is maybe staying at home still, or is renting a cottage somewhere there, and I want to branch out, or I have ambitions then of even being a property investor in this regard. Estate planning, how does it go? How do I approach it, Lev?
Okay, I would say that you really need to start with your estate planning as soon as possible, because what is a little was the question that really stood out for me. So now one would say that having 5 properties is a little. One would say having no properties is a little. And now a lot of people are thinking that I have to own properties in order for me to start estate planning. However, there's also your retirement fund that you're looking at. You're also looking at the money that you have in the bank. We really need to understand that if something does happen to you, how does that wealth be distributed to the relevant people? Because the last thing that you would want is that you pass on, and then the money that you had hoped would go to your children goes to someone else.
So it's what, planning for the future, and just safeguarding and more or less positioning yourself in terms of this property space and what lies there. I mean, how enough can enough be when you look at how one would start with maybe no property at all to a one property, and even that one property, maybe you find that I'm still staying in a cottage, I'm renting, but then I have a property elsewhere with my name, but it's actually making money for me, but I'm not more or less in a hurry to move out of home. I'm not in a hurry to give up that bachelor pad, that cottage that I've had for quite some time, as I'm making a name for myself and the likes, and then maybe probably you start going into the second property, the third property. Is that a consideration, an approach? Or you find people maybe starting by saying that I would go at it in terms of finding a home for myself first, safeguarding myself to say that now that I have a home, I'm secure and everything else, and then I can start thinking about investing. I can start thinking about buying property here, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
For us, Katla, what we discovered even with the workshop that we had was the biggest problem is us not knowing, because you sit down in a gathering and you ask them, guys, what's a trust? Like, people are like, I don't know what's a trust. But then have you inquired about it? Why don't you have it? So it's more of, no, I know that all my properties, I'm going to be married out of community. So it won't be exposed. Whereas you're still missing the point in terms of trust. It's more of, say, asset protection.
whereas you don't have to be, as I did mention, you don't have to be paying those transfer costs over and over again. So it's those harsh topics that we were scared of at one point in time that we have to put on the table.
Do you think that really there's still that gap in terms of knowledge, in terms of where people would want to find themselves, especially young people, where you find that we wallow in all of these negativity, and then we figure that there are no opportunities when maybe probably we need to do the work and be more inquisitive, have more discussions, push ourselves into those spaces that we reckon that never would have I thought that in my life I would be sitting in a seminar, discussing titles, title deeds, discussing trusts, discussing everything else that has to do with property and the like. Do you think that really we need to push ourselves there, whereby there is just a lot of knowledge, it being disseminated or it finding the right people? There's just a little bit of a barrier there.
Yeah, I think that there's still a huge gap between the knowledge that we should be having and what we don't have right now. Because now you find yourself in a situation whereby you were brought up in a house whereby we didn't speak of any trust. My mother and father didn't have any trust or anything like that. Now I'm getting to a stage whereby now I'm a bit older and I'm hearing trust, and I'm asking myself that how do I actually implement that in my household? Now there's just a whole lot of information that I have to look at, understand, and then implement within my family structure, and that becomes a bit hard for a lot of people. So coming to the workshops actually exposes you to such stuff and how to actually structure everything, because what we really believe in is working with people who know and understand what you're working with. So looking at a trust, having a lawyer that really understands trusts and the reason why you need to have that trust is really important.
I mean, you mentioned the issue of marriage. I didn't even think about it that far, but these are the considerations, right? You see, young people now, we are too quick to fall in love, too quick to have babies, and there's just a lot. The world just moves so fast, whereby you can really find yourself in that position without even having thought that in 2 years' time I can be someone's father. In 2 years' time I can be maybe having met the love of my life, and then I'm thinking that we are settling down. So these are the things that you need to take into consideration. Do we get married in community of property? How is that going to look like? What are the implications where all of these things are concerned? And this comes through you actually then being curious and positioning yourself for all of these things, because you just never know what tomorrow where tomorrow may throw you.
100%. And what we've seen during that whole workshop is that it's not one shoe fits all, because you find out even with family structures whereby we also know from the where we're coming from. I mean, even when somebody, let's just say that I came into a family whereby I came with my father, that also has a huge impact towards the family structure and how things will be distributed. So we need to really understand those family structures, that how do they affect the wealth that's within the family. And also I remember Lebo's friend, he was calling him last week saying, I'm so excited, I just came there from the family where the lady is. Lebo was like, do you know what that means, looking at it from the legal side? He was like, I didn't think about it that way, bro.
you basically, because this person can come through and claim your things and say that, but because we see it as you acknowledging that we are now united, we share things and the likes, hence issues of customary, and it's a tricky one. I mean, but also we get excited and then we tend to forget about these things as we go along, which is why then it's always important to have like a brother in the Nong brothers, who will come through and say to you that, hey, before you get too excited, do you know the implications of what you're actually getting yourself into? But if you are maybe probably saying you want to buy, do you know the implications of you maybe buying in a gated area, you now just owning the four walls and nothing else outside of those four walls? Those are the things things that you need to consider when you look at the setup, whereby now there are just a lot of properties, new developments, space, whereby all of these places are stacked on top of each other. It's a lot, and that is where we find ourselves now. But you look at the issue of sectional title deeds, it comes in there to say to you that this is the new or modern way of living, in a way that you only own the four walls per se, and nothing outside of that. If something happens outside, there's body corporate, there are all of these implications, there are trustees, that come in and everything else. So you need to know what you're then getting yourself into, because then also I can't just boom, boom, boom and make a loud music and everything else. There are all of those implications that would come with where the approach that one would take when they go into the property space. Let us in on the sectional title deeds. How does it work? And do you see a lot of people then finding themselves into that space as we see the way that things are doing, the modern day of living per se?
Yeah. So looking at sectional title, right?
Yeah.
I would like to firstly explain what sectional title is. So sectional title would be your apartments or your estates, right? So you're also looking at your townhouses. Now, what they really offer is security. You hear a lot of young people saying that I would like to live in an apartment because of the security or the lifestyle that it offers. Now, if we are all under one gate, somehow makes some sort of security, or we have our own community that we're actually living in, right? As opposed to someone who has their yard, but now it becomes a problem that, okay, how do I go to the next door neighbor and just have a chat with them? Rather than if you are in like an apartment, you can actually bump in easier to your next door neighbor. Now we're seeing a lot of people, young especially, going towards your sectional titles. However, at the same time, now we need to also understand that what is the difference then between your sectional title and your freehold, right? So now your freehold would be your normal houses, whereby how I understood it is that if you are in a sectional title, then you are not you're not directly responsible for the security. But now when you are living in a freehold is more of
like standalone per se. Yeah,
I need to make sure that I get my security on top.
So would you say that that would be more appealing to the younger generation, the issue of the townhouse? So, this idea of living in an estate and everything else like that, compared to sectional, the standalone, and would you say that then there are implications in terms of the financing? And the finances that comes with you purchasing that property as a standalone and you purchasing it as part of a sectional title living. So you're basically not buying the land, you're just buying the four walls, compared to a label who would buy a house and then the land, and then they'll have to now do the entire fencing and everything else, and then put in those. So the different implications to this financially into your pockets.
Okay, the difference is when you're looking at the implication, it's levies, of course, whereby we are paying levies on a sectional title. Whereas, because what happens is that those levies now, as everybody's contributing towards it, that will be used to maintain and sustain the whole complex as a whole. With standalone, it's more of you need to do the garden. And I know for sure with Lebu, he's not one to do garden. You saw he gave me the look.
Yeah. So it's those are the considerations.
Yes.
Do you see, more people opting for standalones or sectionals? And what is the influence? Is it the money, or just that you don't want to do the garden?
Okay, the sectional also, remember something with the work that we do. So sometimes you find out that you most of the time out, or you most of the time even outside the province. So if you know that you're in an estate and you can actually do research in terms of how many breaks-in were there, and you'll find that there's not so many break-ins because now the security is tight. Whereas with standalone, now you are fully responsible for that security, man. So a lot of younger people are opting into that. But then where it becomes a problem, especially with your single bedroom, is that once your family grows, so as much as you were enjoying the fruits, now if you got 4, 5, 6 kids, now you are forced now to move into.
Yeah, I mean it's life. It more or less gives you that sense that sectional living would just be for a bachelor or for you as you are starting out and you are just young in your career and you just still feeling nice and vibey compared to. But also there are rules, right? That pertains to the one area compared to the next. There you are your own boss. You can come back at whatever time and do whatever. Blast music at whatever time. I can just decide to start a braai in the middle of nowhere, just there in the yard, and say that this is the space that I'm having a braai at the east wing of the the property. Compared to when you're staying in a sectional living, because then there are those rules and regulations whereby you're not staying alone, so you have to be mindful of the people around you.
Yeah. So I think that's the trade-off that you need to understand if you're going towards your sectional title. That if I am going towards my sectional title, then I can't just wake up at 1 a.m. in the morning and then just blast some music.
Can I please just add something?
Yeah.
We need to be very careful with regards to sectional, especially how it affects property investors. Because what happens is that there's this thing of ABNB that a lot of people are buying into ABNB. Going back to what you said in terms of the rules, some sectional titles, what they do now is that they prohibit ABNB. Now, unfortunately, you'd find out that when you ran your numbers calculated, it made sense for Airbnb. So now that you've bought the property and you want to Airbnb it, you find that they don't allow that there. So that's another thing that we really need to be careful of when it comes to sectional and standalone.
Why wouldn't they allow it? What are the risks attached to it? Is it something that doesn't give you security, or there's just no longevity attached to it? It's an in and out situation whereby you're just worried about the structure.
Yeah. So for the most part of it, it's the security element. I mean, if I'm having like babies living in my house, say for instance, I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and now my next door neighbor, I'm not really sure who's living there, and there's just people coming in and out of that apartment. It also does bring the safety element that are my kids really safe in this sectional title or in this area. Now, if that's the situation, and now a lot of people are actually complaining around that estate or that apartment block, then it becomes a problem whereby they have to now start revising that if they do allow the sectional titles. But some sectional titles are strictly for Airbnb. When they built them, they were advertised as places of Airbnb.
Does it become I remember we had a conversation around the issue of the body corporate and the issue of the trustees and the role that they play and on your property, to say that it's still your property, but then there are these people that you'd still need to more or less answer to and follow their rules and the likes. Are these the kind of situations that you more or less should brace yourself for when you go into sectional, leaving or title, staying or anything else that has to do with sectional? Are these the kind of things to say that you're not per se going to have the last word, final word? You sometimes have to consult compared to if you are staying alone.
Yeah, 100%, Katlego. And that's why we're saying that when it comes to sectional, man, it's your control is very limited. So it's one of those. I mean, even noise control. When you're looking at your Airbnb, I mean, advertising Airbnb as a property investor, at no point can you say that no parties or no drinking, because you're speaking to people that are really old, man. So if, let's just say, your next door neighbor is that, and it's parties every weekend, for people that are living there, we can cause pressure for the body corporate to actually revise this. So it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day, whereby I understand from both sides, residents and the investors, that they bought it for an investment purpose, man.
Yes, there's a lot to consider though, but I guess research, more or less preparing yourself before buying or doing anything else will go a long way. And this is where then I advise people to really follow these guys, the Nong brothers. They'll really more or less give you a sense of what you need to know and open your eyes. They are also on socials as well, in terms of the videos that they always post and upload. So there's a lot that you can get from them. But how do we follow your work, guys, as we say goodbye?
So you can follow us on YouTube and all other social media platforms at Nong Wealth. So that's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you very much for giving us your time, and welcome back to Gauteng. I'm hoping that, it sinks in that you guys are back here, but really appreciate you giving us your time this morning. They are the Nong brothers, the dynamic duo, just coming through this morning to give us a sense of what we need to know in the property space. Do follow their work. They are the Nong Wealth brothers, and let's do it again. Me and you bright and early for the Wednesday installment of the show.